Aaron Rodgers reigns supreme with the Green Bay Packers like there was no doubt anyways, but some people were ready to write him off. Some people were saying, you just need to try more. Just try more. See what happens if you tried. Well, I guarantee you that the Packers did try to win that game. The Lions were in it for the longest time, up until halftime, and then no answered points in the second half. Green Bay rolls on. Monday Night Football victory heading into Week 3 of the 2021 NFL season. We're very, very appreciative that you guys can join us on this episode. My name is Hassan Khan, the host of the show. We like to call it Time2Football. Every Monday through Friday morning, 10 a.m., 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, we get on here, we get on live, we talk about different topics going on in the NFL, and now we have to turn the page on Week 2, look forward to Week 3 coming up. So we're going to be talking about Week 3, Tuesdays and Fridays, like we mentioned, is all fantasy football related. So today we're going to give you a sneak peek of our ads and drops that we're going to be releasing later on in about a couple hours after the stream ends. And then after that, we're going to be talking about some players that we want to let you guys know about that you need to buy, sell, and hold in fantasy football. On top of that, you guys are tuning in right now with your comments and your questions in the fantasy football community chat here on the stream. Miguel, daily check-in. Miguel, we got to do this daily check-in. Hello, good morning to everyone. What's up, Miguel? Hope you're doing well over there in Puerto Rico. You guys are continuing to fill in your questions. Hey, continue to do that. I'm going to get to you guys, answer your questions later on in the episode. How many of you guys won in fantasy football? I am actually in 2 leagues, so I am 2-0 in my main league. My main league is one that I do with my friends. We have money on the line, so that's where I get more emotionally invested. But I'm also in this Time2Football fan league that we started. And let me set up the story right here. I had Allen Robinson on my team. The day that Gus Edwards got hurt, someone offered me Gus Edwards for Allen Robinson. I accepted the offer. Oh, I want Gus Edwards. Gave him Allen Robinson. A few hours later, Gus Edwards got hurt. I know, it's tough luck. It's tough luck. Nothing I can do about it. Some people were like, oh, well, maybe we should veto. I was like, I'll leave it up to the guy. If he thinks it's fair, whatever. And he said to me, tough luck, which is true. And then I faced him in fantasy football this week, and I'm down by a big margin. He had Cooper Kupp, and that's the downfall of doing a Time2Football fantasy league, is because they drafted based off of my rankings, and I had Cooper Kupp really high up, and I wanted him, but he ended up taking him before me. But he ended up having Cooper Kupp, had an amazing game. So I was down. I had TJ Hawkinson versus the Green Bay Packers defense, right? I was down by 7 points, I want to say, 7.5 points. And I was like, okay, well, if TJ Hawkinson just outscores the Green Bay Packers defense by 7.5 points, I should be fine. I should be good. Well, the game was going on, and by the time the game ended, I think the final score was 112 to, let me see if I can actually pull this up for you guys so you guys can see. It was 112 to 112, but I had 112.92. He had 112.26. And then I was like, shoot, man, I won. Narrow victory. It happened. TJ Hawkinson, this is why I was so big on him, coming in clutch, right? Well, then my hot brunette wife comes home, and she's like talking to me, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I had a good night. I was watching football. Hey, check out this fantasy football score. That was so close. And let me actually pull it up to you guys so you guys can see right here. I was like, yeah, man, this is actually a very good score and very good victory that I was able to come out with. And then let me blow this up. Put up my phone, and this is the final score that was actually happening. Right there, 113.26 versus 112.92. My name is Chubby Chaser, by the way, because I have Nick Chubb and Jamar Chase. But I lost because of a stat correction. That fumble that Jared Goff had, where he was going to pass the ball and it ended up slipping from his hand, they counted it as a sack. Even though he recovered it, in my humble opinion, I think it should be a loss of yards. But I lost by 0.34 because of a stat correction yesterday. And I was like, all right, this isn't my main league. My purpose isn't to win this league, whatever. I'm not emotionally distraught over it, but ooh, man, a stat correction. I don't know. Leave your comments, leave your thoughts in the chat. Do you think that Jared Goff losing control of the ball, falling on the ground, and then falling on top of it as a fumble recovery should be a sack when no one touched him? Or should it be considered loss of yards? I don't know. It's considered a sack in the NFL. Whatever. Time to move on. 1-1 in that league. Let's move on. So if you guys have any stories like that as well, where you won by a close margin or lost by a close margin, I know a lot of you guys are second in your league in points for the week, and then you lose first to the team that scored first in points. That's the worst. That's worse than losing by 0.34. It's because I'm like, man, I did everything right. I scored a lot of points, and then there's just one other person. It was just the luck of the schedule. That's the worst part. So I have sympathy for everyone that was in that scenario. But yeah, leave your thoughts in your comments. Deej says, LOL, Goff sack. Yeah, he strip sacked himself. So that should actually count for points for Jared Goff. I mean, he should get a point for that sack. Yeah, Keith, good question. I don't know. I really don't know. The NFL is considering it a sack. But, hey, I mean, if there's another stat correction out there, which I doubt that they'd take away that sack, then I win. But whatever. It's okay. All right, moving on with the show. What we're going to do right now is talk about some NFL news and notes that's going around the league right now. Let me go ahead and pull this up. And let's first start off with some injury news. I think that's the biggest thing that we have to talk about every single week, because injuries just happen daily, and we have to keep you guys updated on that. First one, Trey Sermon is in the concussion protocol officially, so there's no doubt or there's it's kind of foggy. It's kind of cloudy, that whole 49ers situation. There's no guaranteed starting running back because Trey Sermon is going to be in this concussion protocol. Elijah Mitchell, he's on a day-to-day basis right now with that shoulder injury that he suffered against the Philadelphia Eagles. And then Jermichael Hasty on top of that as well suffered a high ankle sprain. He is week to week. So he got the worst of it. And I think that the 49ers are bringing in Duke Johnson and Lamar Miller as well to, maybe put on their practice squad or try out, whatever it may be. But yeah, it's not looking good for the 49ers backfield in that case. Tyrod Taylor could miss up to 4 games this upcoming season with a grade 2 hamstring injury. That means that Davis Mills will be starting for the Houston Texans this Thursday against the Carolina Panthers. Derek Carr, so he actually suffered an injury. It's an ankle injury. He's questionable versus the Dolphins. No guarantee if he plays or not, but people are saying, okay, well, he's just going to tough it out. He's probably going to be limited throughout practice. You don't have to worry. Derek Carr probably is going to be good to go this week against the Dolphins. Carson Wentz, speaking of an ankle injury, he didn't just sprain one ankle, but both ankles. And now his status is unclear this Sunday if he's going to be playing or not. So the injury woes for Carson Wentz continues. It's like, okay, well, Carson Wentz could be a good quarterback if he were to stay healthy. Now he's looking like Jacob Eason is going to be taking his starting job until Carson Wentz comes back healthy. Nico Collins, the up-and-coming receiver for the Houston Texans, suffered a shoulder injury. He'll miss a good amount of time, 3 to 4 weeks. Another big-name wide receiver we want to mention, Jarvis Landry, has an MCL sprain, and he is guaranteed to miss some time. A team that's already without Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, could this be Anthony Schwartz's time, the third-round rookie that they drafted this past draft? Darrell Henderson, the last one that we wanted to mention, has a rib injury, and his status is that he is day-to-day. Now, Sean McVay did say that he's pretty confident that Darrell Henderson is going to be playing, but if you were to sit out just to rest for 1 week, Sony Michel would be the hot hand and guaranteed to get the majority of the carries. But that is your NFL news and notes for today, September 21st, the first day of fall. Isn't it not? I don't know. Yesterday they were saying that Packers-Lions game was the last game of the summer. So I'm guessing today is fall. But now we're going to move on to fantasy football ads and drops on the waiver wire for week 3. Now, what I did for Tuesdays is, let me actually take that off. What I did for Tuesdays initially was I did ads and drops, gave you a teaser for that, showed the video, and then I showed the starts and sits. Well, I'm starting to realize that making graphics for these videos takes a long time. And I can't get the starts and sits graphics just in time. So instead, what I'm going to do is on the show is I'm going to show you the adds and drops first. And then later on, I'm going to give you players that you need to buy, sell, and hold at each position in fantasy football, trade targets. And then later on in the day, I'm going to release the starts and sits videos as its own separate video. But the ads and drops video will be its own separate video as well. But for you guys that are tuning in to the live stream, you guys get an early look on this. So let me go ahead and I pre-recorded this. Let me go ahead and play that video, and then I'm going to get back to you guys in probably the next 5 minutes or so, however long this video is. Let's go ahead and pull it up and let's check it out. Here are our fantasy football waiver wire ads and drops for week 3. With quarterbacks, the must-adds: Teddy Bridgewater, Kirk Cousins, and Daniel Jones. And our ad of the week, Derek Carr. Carr for years has been a fantasy football sleeper, but never lived up to the hype. Now Carr is averaging over 400 yards a game. With him being owned in just 16% of leagues, now is the time to buy in on Derek Carr. The must-drops: Baker Mayfield, Mac Jones, and Tyrod Taylor. And our drop of the week, Ben Roethlisberger. Pittsburgh's offense continues to struggle, and the reality is that there are other quarterbacks I'd rather have off the waivers than Big Ben. Guys like Daniel Jones and Teddy Bridgewater would make for a better backup in fantasy football. Running backs, the must-adds: Tony Pollard, Cordero Patterson, and Kenneth Gainwell. And our ad of the week, Alexander Mattison. The obvious ad is Tony Pollard, but I'm putting down Madison because Dalvin Cook was banged up multiple times last Sunday. He toughed it out, but because it happened more than once, there's no way that Madison should be owned in just 28% of leagues. He's one of the most valuable handcuffs in fantasy football. The must-drops: Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, and Mark Ingram. And our drop of the week, Phillip Lindsay. The touchdowns may want you to hold on to him, but there's no way we should put our trust in someone who's averaging 7 touches a game. Lindsay is in a crowded backfield with an offense who is now down to the third-string quarterback. Wide receivers, the must-adds: Tim Patrick, KJ Osborne, and Rondale Moore. And our ad of the week, Sterling Shepard. People's hot target at wide receiver is going to be Rondale Moore, which rightfully so, but don't let the flashiness of Moore deter you from Sterling Shepard. He's averaging 10 targets a game and has become the #1 target of Daniel Jones. The must-drops: Paris Campbell, Nelson Aguilar, and Tyrell Williams. And our drop of the week, Marquez Callaway. Guys, let's please move on. I urged everyone not to draft Callaway because his ADP was all based off speculation and hype. People passed up on quality receivers like Sterling Shepard, Darnell Mooney, and Michael Pittman for Callaway. Even if he scores 20 points this week, he's not worth the headache. Either trade him or drop him. Tight ends, the must-adds: Evan Ingram, Jack Doyle, and Jared Cook. And our ad of the week, Austin Hooper. I'm not a fan of the fact that Hooper has 2 other tight ends to compete with, but the injury to Jarvis Landry should instantly make Hooper one of Mayfield's favorite targets. You could get decent production from Hooper for the next couple of weeks. The must-drops: Eric Ebron, Hunter Henry, and Zach Ertz. And our drop of the week, Juwan Johnson. All right, so now that you got your fix and added Johnson this week, you found out for yourself that he isn't a viable option. The position in general is rough, but I can't think of a scenario where you would want Johnson on your roster. Kickers, the must-adds: Rodrigo Blankenship, Evan McPherson, and Matt Prater. And our ad of the week, Daniel Carlson. The Raiders are actually pretty good, meaning that Carlson still may have many opportunities to convert field goals this season. So far, he's scored double-digit points in both games this year. The must-drops: Robbie Gould, Chase McLaughlin, and Josh Lambo. And our drop of the week, Jason Myers. We said the same thing about Mason Crosby last week. It's bad to have a kicker with a high-scoring offense. So why is Myers regarded as a top 5 kicker in fantasy football? The last 2 weeks proved that Myers will mostly score extra points as opposed to field goals. Defense and special teams, the must-adds: the Browns, Raiders, and the Cardinals. And our ad of the week, the Carolina Panthers. 2 weeks is all we need to see to realize that the Panthers defense is legit. They have talent on every aspect of defense, the front 7 and the secondary. Sounds like a juicy matchup is coming up this Thursday against a rookie quarterback. the must drops, the Chiefs, Vikings, and the Packers. And our drop of the week, the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins defense is very talented, but I consider them to be a drop because of their schedule coming up. Las Vegas, Indianapolis, and Tampa Bay. You could hang on to them for the matchup against the Colts, but Indy is so hit or miss on offense. And that is your waiver wire ads and drops for week 3. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and split this video up. It's going to be coming out probably in the next couple of hours after this stream ends. But for you guys that are early birds and tuning in, actually, Jack Quarantano, I want to give you a shout out because you are actually at work risking your career for Time2Football. You could potentially risk your job. And the fact that you're listening to Time2Football right now, that's very touching, but I want you to not get fired on top of that. So unless you're the manager and you can do whatever you want, then whatever. But thank you for listening while you're at work. But yeah, that is our fantasy football waiver wire ads and drops. Oh, we got an international person coming in. TN17, greetings from Germany. Rubio, 2 leagues? LOL, question mark? Yeah, you would expect I'd be in more, right? But no, I like to put my attention on just, I usually only do 1 league, just because I feel like if I'm doing 3, 4, 5 leagues, then I get too stretched out at that point. So I did this fan league just because, I wanted to have fun with the Time2Football fans. But yep, I'm in 2 leagues. If you guys are in way more leagues, comment below. I want to see who's in the most amount of leagues and how stressful is it. I want to know. And how stressful was it in the case of, because me and my hot brunette wife were actually talking about this the other day. We were like, oh man, if you're in like 4, 5, 6 leagues, you could just draft different players and just have completely different teams all around. And you're bound to win one of them because you're going to have players from all over the place. So yeah, I want to know who has the most amount of leagues, and do you guys have like the same players in those leagues, or is it kind of different? Now let's get into, as you guys are commenting down below, I want to spend the next segment talking about fantasy football trade targets. I kind of did this last week. Let me see if I can pull up this topic bar. As you guys know, buy, sell, hold. Okay, cool. So fantasy trade targets, players to buy, sell, and hold in fantasy football for week 3. Okay, so these are players that, man, the value is just so low right now. You can give up not that much to get this player, and they're going to do well later on. Players that you need to sell high, like, okay, man, this guy had an amazing game, but I'm not too big on him. So we're going to give you, at each position, 1 buy, 1 sell, and 1 hold. For quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, kickers, and defense. I mean, people don't really trade those positions, so we're not going to be talking about them per se. But let's first start off with some quarterbacks that we need to buy. I think if I had to choose one quarterback to buy, our buy of the week would be Josh Allen. Josh Allen, that game against the Miami Dolphins, did not have the best performance. He looked great, and he did enough that he could. I think it was a discredit to – it's not a discredit to Allen and his talent. It's a credit to the Dolphins' defense and how good of a defense they played. You look at the final score, yeah, they were kind of shut out. But for the most part, they kept up with the Bills' offense for the majority of that game. So the Dolphins' defense is really good. So I think that Allen right now, while his value is just really low for people that don't know the value of Josh Allen, or just look at the stats and the scores and like, okay, well, this guy sucks now. I'm going to go ahead and trade him. I encourage you guys to buy in on Josh Allen. So quarterback buy, Josh Allen. Quarterback sell, Daniel Jones. This isn't saying that I don't think that Daniel Jones is going to be good in fantasy football. I do think that with his rushing floor, he's going to be great. 9 carries, 95 yards, and a rushing touchdown against the Washington football team, a great defense. Yeah, that's amazing. If he's on the waiver wire, you need to pick him up as your backup quarterback. But I'm saying that he's a sell because while his value is just so high, scoring 29 points, 20 points in games, you can trade him for something that you really need, like a wide receiver, a running back. Now's the time to trade him to someone that is in desperate need of a quarterback, looks at the numbers. Oh, Daniel Jones, He's putting up some good stats. Sell Daniel Jones. Hold. Quarterback hold. Ryan Tannehill. Please, please, please hold on to Ryan Tannehill. He's actually a quarterback buy as well if you wanted to buy in on him if you don't have him and you need a quarterback. The talent is still there. The offense is still there. He just had his rough patches against the Arizona Cardinals in week 1 and week 2. They just leaned in on Derrick Henry a lot more. And Tannehill also on top of that didn't have the best performance, but that touchdown catch to Julio Jones, and I'm calling it a touchdown catch because it was a touchdown catch, in the back of the end zone that was not called. If he scored that, we wouldn't be talking about Ryan Tannehill and freaking out about his fantasy football output because he would have a lot more points. So he was just an overturned call that should not have been overturned. Call away from actually being a good fantasy football quarterback. So just hold on to Ryan Tannehill. So those are the buy, sells, and holds for quarterback. Running backs, the one buy that I have for running back, and I mentioned this guy last week, James Robinson. Please buy in on him while his value is just so low. This is the worst that Robinson will ever perform. I think last week in week 1 was the worst fantasy football output that he ever put up. Ever in his career. And so that gave me a little bit of encouragement. Like, okay, maybe 5.5, 6.5 fantasy points, whatever. Maybe that's the worst that he can do. Okay, it can only go up. And then it's slowly going in that direction. Urban Meyer, I think, is going to realize we need to run with the football. We do. And against the Denver Broncos, who have a great run defense, he averaged more than 4 yards a carry on 11 carries, 47 yards. And he was involved in the passing game as well. And here's a little bit of sign of encouragement for you guys, because we said to buy him last week. Going into week 2, he had an uptick in usage. He had 87% of the running back touches as opposed to Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde only had two carries. And everybody was freaking out that Carlos Hyde had more carries than James Robinson. So please, buy in on James Robinson right now. I'm not saying that he's going to be an RB1 by any means, but maybe he could go to that mid RB2 level that we drafted him to be. I do think that he's going to be an every week flex play for the most part, moving on this season. So buy in on James Robinson. Sell. Running back sell. Mike Davis. Sell that guy. Cordero Patterson looked great. I know that he was involved in the passing game a lot, but the fact that Mike Davis, going into the season, we did not know if he was going to be the official 3-down back. We knew that he was going to be the starting running back, but according to multiple reports, the Falcons have said the door is wide open for any running back to take over. So whoever gets the hot hand is going to be the guy. And Cordero Patterson had the hot hand. And now officially he has found a team, by the looks of it, that he can fit in and have a good career with. So Cordero Patterson is going to be working in, even if he's going to be the starting running back, if he's going to be working in 50% of it. Mike Davis's value, regardless, is just going to keep on going down. So I would sell Mike Davis. Hold. The running back hold, Antonio Gibson. Hold on to this guy. Same case of James Robinson. When you're freaking out about the production that James Robinson put up in week 1, I say that Antonio Gibson is in a much better spot because he's more talented than James Robinson. He looked better in both his games than James Robinson. And the worst that he put up this season, 8 fantasy points, 9 fantasy points. If we're freaking out about Antonio Gibson rushing for 90 yards in week 1, 69 nice yards in week 2, I'm okay with that because that's a lot of yardage and that's a safe floor at that point. 8 or 9 fantasy points is the worst that a player can get. What's the best? If Antonio Gibson got that rushing touchdown instead of J.D. McKissick, we would not be concerned about Gibson. So I encourage you guys, the usage is just going to keep on going up. J.D. McKissick had the best game of his career. He's not going to have a game like that this season at least. So buy in or hold at least on Antonio Gibson. Do not do anything foolish. Wide receivers, buy in on A.J. Brown. 5.8 half PPR fantasy points this past week. But if you didn't watch the game, he was just a long touchdown away from redeeming his fantasy football output. I'm talking about like a 40, 50-yard touchdown. A ball that went straight right through his hand. Tannehill threw it perfectly, went through his hand, did not get the touchdown. So because of that, we look at Antonio Brown's or A.J. Brown's output. We say, okay, well, he's not going to be that great in fantasy football. Not true. He's going to be great. buy in on A.J. Brown. Sell Robert Woods. Cooper Kupp is now the number one guy. I was never big on Robert Woods to begin with in the season. I do think he's a pretty decent player if you need some wide receiver depth, but he's not a wide receiver 2 like we drafted him to be. He's not. Sell on Robert Woods. Hold Juju Smith-Schuster. Gave us a little bit of encouragement the last couple of weeks with the target share that he's got, and especially yesterday or 2 days ago against the Raiders, looked pretty good as far as the target share goes. So I would hold on to Juju Smith-Schuster, and he could emerge as a great player in fantasy football if Deontay Johnson were to miss some time. Tight ends, buy in on George Kittle while his value is just so low. I know Deebo Samuel is the main guy right now. Ayuk, I don't know what's going on with that guy. Deebo Samuel is getting most of the target share. He's the most trusted target of Jimmy Garoppolo, but George Kittle, it's just bound to happen. The talent is there. George Kittle, it's a top 3 tight end in fantasy football. You want to buy in on this guy whenever you can. Sell. Okay, this is pretty tough, but I would sell Mark Andrews. I still think that he could be a buy. It could be 50-50. You could buy him and he could do well, but I would sell him because sell him to someone that knows that Mark Andrews is a top 5 tight end, because you can get something great out of that if you're in need of a running back or wide receiver. So sell Mark Andrews because the passing game was on point for Baltimore against the Kansas City Chiefs. It was a high-scoring game. They ran with the ball a lot. And in that game, you'd expect, okay, out of all the games throughout the season, you'd want the highest-scoring game to be the one to evaluate Mark Andrews and his fantasy football value. And the fact that he only got 5 receptions in the highest-scoring game that the Baltimore Ravens probably will have this season, I mean, I don't know. That doesn't give me a lot of hope for Mark Andrews. So, like I said, don't sell him to anyone. Don't undervalue Mark Andrews. He's a top 5 tight end. Sell him to a person that already knows that he's a top 5 tight end as well. Get something great out of that. Hold Jonnu Smith. It's not looking good for Smith, sharing it with Hunter Henry, but he is by far the most athletic player on offense out of any position for the New England Patriots. And they're going to get him some work. Okay, actually, as a matter of fact, there's a play. I think it wasn't a flea flicker. It was an end around. No, it was James White got the handoff, and then he threw it back to Mac Jones. And instead of Mac Jones going deep to Nelson Aguilar, he kind of took the safe route and went mid-range to Jonnu Smith. That told me, okay, Mac Jones, Jonnu Smith, they want to get him involved in the Patriots offense. Jones trusts him. I would hold on to Jonnu Smith right now. I don't know if he's going to be a tight end 1 per se, but he's going to have those games, I feel like, in the future where you can expect the tight end 1 production. So that is our fantasy football buys, sells, and holds for week 3. If you have anybody else in mind, please comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. All right, now time for fantasy football questions. You guys have been patient in the chats, and I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this and answer as many questions as I can. I love TDs. Thanks, brother. Even if you don't answer my questions, you answer them in other ways. Oh, I appreciate that. But did you ask a question? Let me go back because, okay. Oh, yeah, you wrote down the SOS. Who do I keep? Tyson, Javonte Williams, Gainwell, Mitchell. How many people can you keep? Are you just talking about one of them that you have to keep and then you have to drop the rest? I mean, I can list them in order, which ones I would keep. In order, who I would keep. Number 1, Javonte Williams. Number 2, Tyson Williams. Number 3, Kenneth Gainwell. Number 4, Elijah Mitchell. I know someone in my league spent 47 fab budget on getting Elijah Mitchell. We only have $100 to work with. And he spent 47 of those dollars on Elijah Mitchell because he had Raheem Mostert, which makes sense. But that 49ers backfield, do not trust them. The only guy I would buy in on that 49ers backfield is Jeff Wilson, and he's not going to be playing for another few weeks. So that would be my order. Let's see. What else do we got? Daniel Orton, we're talking about buying. Gronkowski, buy. I mean, this is the best value that we're going to get out of Rob Gronkowski right now. He's kind of leaning towards a sell. And when I say sell, I'm not saying that Rob Gronkowski is going to, go off the deep end and he's going to go bad, but I'm saying that he's going to he's not going to have production like he's having the last couple of weeks, having like 2 touchdowns a game. That's not going to happen every week. So sell Rob Gronkowski if you want to get a good, amazing running back out of it. Other than that, I mean, I would keep Rob Gronkowski. Rubio, is Max on the Cardinals a good ad for tight ends? I think he's a sleeper. Yeah, I actually had Max Williams ranked as a top 20 tight end in my draft rankings. But the thing is, though, with Max Williams is this past week did not give me a lot of hope, even though he had 7 targets, had 7 receptions. Awesome, cool. Checked it down. Kyler Murray did to Max Williams. Athletic, we all know about Max Williams. If you know about the hurdle that he had at Minnesota a few years ago, back in like 2013 or whenever he was drafted, then you know how good how good of an athlete he is. But the thing is with Max Williams is this Cardinals offense, Williams was more of a blocking tight end. I think there were 55 snaps that he was on, and he ran a route on 21 of them. Now, he caught a reception on a third of the routes that he ran, but 21 routes, unless you're in desperate need of a tight end, I wouldn't jump the gun and give up a whole bunch and put a lot of stock in Max Williams. But if you are desperate, why not? Worth a shot. Well, let's see. Rob Navarro, was Carr hurt? Yeah. I mentioned this in the beginning of the show. He has an ankle injury. I do think he is going to play, but let's monitor his status leading up to this Sunday. What else do we got? Do you think, this is by Jaden Mercado, do you think I should take out Julio for A.J. Brown? Do you think I should take out Julio or A.J. Brown will get more touches? Are you saying that if you put in Julio and A.J. Brown together, then you're concerned about them not getting as many touches? Because that philosophy I'm just squashing that theory right now. I know a lot of people are saying like, oh, well, you don't need 2 wide receivers on the same lineup because they're just going to take targets away from each other. Oh, okay. Well, in the broad sense, it makes sense. But I'm telling you, if 2 wide receivers are good, then they're good and they're going to get production. There's only a handful of teams where I would say, yeah, I'm okay with having my wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 being from the same team. That is the Chargers, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. That is the Cowboys with CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. I think there was another one. But if you have, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is another one. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans or Antonio Brown, whichever one you prefer. I'm okay with that. But then there are other teams like Tennessee. I wouldn't jump the gun just yet. I think I would still prefer A.J. Brown over Julio Jones. I would have put both of them in the lineup at the same time just yet because I don't think Julio Jones is going to have the level of game that he had yesterday or 2 days ago every single week. But that's just my thoughts. You said I don't have A.J. Brown, but like in the sense of Julio not doing good. Okay. Yeah, I don't think Julio, like I said, A.J. Brown, I would prefer A.J. Brown over Julio. And I mean, if you have Julio Jones and don't have A.J. Brown, yeah, I mean, Julio's, to me, is a flex play moving on forward. Unless the matchup is good, then you can start him, but I don't consider him to be an every week wide receiver 2, if that's what you're asking. Let's answer one more because we are going a little bit late. Rob Dale, you said aloha from Hawaii. Okay, awesome. We got some people from Hawaii here. Let's answer your question as well, Rob. My third RB/flex is Damian Harris. That's awesome. Good for the rest of the season. Yeah, absolutely. Or should I try to upgrade my team? Is Zeke, Chubb, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, A-Rob, Sutton, Waddle, Pollard? That's what your team is. Okay, so you got Zeke, who is, I was never big. He was a second-round talent for me in my draft board. Just because of Tony Pollard. And guess what's happening? Tony Pollard is coming onto the scene, and that's going to hurt the value of Zeke. Zeke is still very good, and if you actually want to sell him, sure. But I think your lineup is actually very, very good. Having Chubb, Harris, and Zeke as your top 3 running backs right then itself, I don't think Zeke is going to be bad. I just think that he's going to get less touches because of Tony Pollard. So I would still hold on to Zeke. I wouldn't really upgrade much. Your wide receivers could use a little bit of help. Keenan Allen, I know, is, that's your wide receiver 1. Don't get rid of him. But in the sense of fantasy football, the least important position in all of fantasy football is wide receiver 2, because you can draft those late round receivers, and we're seeing it right now. Those people that got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Cooks, Corey Davis, those guys in the later rounds, Robbie Anderson as well. You could plug them into your wide receiver 2. Don't spend a high draft pick on people like Allen Robinson or DJ Moore, which you have. So I wouldn't really, at that point, since you already spent that draft capital on them, make an upgrade to your wide receiver position. It is what it is, So I think you're in a good spot having those 3 running backs as your top 3 backs. Let's go ahead and wrap up this week's episode. But we appreciate you guys joining us for this morning live show that we do every day from Monday through Friday. Like I said, subscribe to this channel so you guys can stay up to date with any fantasy football videos that we're coming out with. Later today, we're going to split up this waiver wire ads and drops videos, release that, and then the starts and sits videos that you guys love to see is coming out later tonight as well. With all that said, thank you guys so much for watching this episode, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.